Let's talk about Trey Hendrickson for a moment. Over the weekend, you probably saw that the Cincinnati Bengals backed up the Brinks truck to keep both of their wide receivers. So that means that Joe Burrow now has Ja'Marr Chase and yeah? Wow.
Higgins?
Joe Burrow.
Yeah. My brain just stopped. I don't know why it does that sometimes. It just goes, stop. And T. Higgins to throw to. And the question became, okay, that's all well and good, but you know your defense is the unit that stunk last year, right? Like, you know that was the reason why you lost games. You know that was the reason why your season was teetering down the stretch. So Cincinnati is working to retain Trey Hendrickson. Discussions are ongoing between both sides. We talked last week, Chew, about how we were underwhelmed by what the Packers did in free agency, and I said, if you go out and get Trey Hendrickson, that cures all of my frustrations. That would be the difference maker. To me, that would be the big free agent signing that locks up or certainly improves your defensive line. And now it sounds like the Bengals are trying to do what many in the league thought was possible and pay all three of these stars, that according to The Athletic's Diana Rossini. Are you surprised that the Cincinnati Bengals are figuring out a way to just print money?
I'm not surprised. I think they realize that in order to have a very, very good football team, you have to have superstars. And I don't know if Goody subscribes. See, Goody would rather buy the highest rated Buick instead of buying a BMW or a Mercedes. It just ain't gonna happen. The fact that I thought there might be a chance that he would do that, it's just not there, which is fine.
Well, hold on, Chew.
I think it's been the way Green Bay's done things for a long time.
I want to give you some credit here. I think it's fair for your brain to have come to that conclusion that he might do that after what he did last year, after going out and getting Josh Jacobs, after going out and getting Xavier McKinney, both of which were game changers for their respective sides of the ball.
Sure, but they're not 740 IL BMWs. They're a really, really nice Buick. That's what he likes. He likes a solid Buick, good in the snow, gas mileage, leather. You know, he doesn't need the super duper electronics, which is, I don't agree with him. But, I mean, one thing I give Goody for is sticking to his plan. It's just the highest paid player behind Jordan Love is Rashawn Gary at $25 million. I don't think he could fathom paying $38 million for a player. I just don't think that's his deal. And I don't agree with it. It's just, for me, Jen, it's 100% about his pace of play. You know?
Like slow and steady wins the race sort of thing?
Slow and steady, yeah. Hey, that's why I'm like, and I was thinking about it over the weekend, because it's a tough job. It's a tough sport, you know. It's tough having the media take shots at you. But if I'm Ed Policy, the new president of the Packers next year, Josh, after June?
This year, I'm going into Goody. I'm saying you got 3 years. You have 3 years. That's what you have.
So you're putting him on the proverbial hot seat.
3 years.
It's warming up.
You have 3 years to win this franchise a Super Bowl, or essentially tell them you will be on the hot seat and we will make a decision there. Fair enough? Are you guys with me or no?
I mean, yeah, if you are a guy who is underwhelmed with the results, which I think would be fair, if over the next, let's just say this season ends up, they make the playoffs again and get bounced in the first or second round, I do think that's fair. I don't think you can tout urgency as one of your key talking points in the offseason after you lose and then not be urgent in action. But Chew, would it surprise you to learn that at the position we are talking about, which is defensive line, which we have said for months has been a position of need for this Green Bay Packers team, that the Packers are 9th in the NFL in overall spending at that position? 9th
on the D-line
overall, yes.
Yeah, probably with Kenny Clark and Gary. I mean, that's two big money pieces. I'm surprised it's 9th. Especially, well, the production does not match the money they're investing in there, right? When you're 26 in the league when it comes to the defensive line, it's not good. Especially, it's just not good.
100%. Couldn't agree more. So then the question I ask you is this. Did they shore up what they perceive to be the issues when they made a coaching change? When they made the coaching change, did that convince you that they don't believe they have a talent issue at those positions? It was that they didn't have a coach who was getting the most out of the talent at those positions.
And you're talking about Hafley?
No, 𝘾𝙃𝙀𝙀𝙀.
Correct. Jason
Oh,
Rebrovich. He's now fired.
Yeah. I just don't think they have talented guys.
Right, but what I'm saying is the disconnect between what you're saying and what they're showing you is because they haven't gone out and made any moves. And we just said that they are 9th in salary spending at that position in the league.
Yeah.
And so they're paying guys, and you're not getting the performance from them. When they fired the coach, did that send the message to you that the coach was the issue, not the players?
No, the coach is the fall guy. Like, I never understood when they fire strength coaches because there's always someone to blame. You always have to blame somebody, right? When you're dealing with a weight room, you're dealing with the player itself. Does the player have, to drive to go in there and work hard, And I've been around a lot of guys in this league that did minimal work in the weight room and were still great players. And I just sit there and I go, man, if I had their ability on the field and as hard as I attack the weight room, I mean, that would be luscious. It's just they need a fall guy. I'm not expecting the D-line to be – I'm not expecting Rashawn Gary in his 7th season where he's never had double-digit sacks to have 18 sacks this year. Doesn't – now, could it happen with Van Ness? Could he get up to 8 or something? Based upon what I've seen, if I was a betting man, I'd say no chance in hell. But I will still give him that one more year. I won't even give him the full year. I'll give him the first third of the year. And if it looks the same, I just think they needed a scapegoat, and 𝘾𝙃𝙀𝙀 was the guy.
Joshy, when you look at the situation that the Bengals have, and you see, obviously they've got Joe Burrow. They obviously wanted to lock up their talent, and we didn't think that they could. But you mentioned T. Higgins sort of took a below-market deal with his extension, and now that is allowing them to engage in conversation with Trey Hendrickson. Are they treating this season vastly different than the Green Bay Packers are treating it?
There's one big difference here, and it's the Bengals are doing all they can to keep Joe Burrow happy. The Bengals have been a disappointment, and the idea of having to part ways with one of either T. Higgins or Ja'Marr Chase was something he very publicly spoke out about. They've put their eggs in their basket. They are going to let Joe Burrow, much like Aaron Rodgers desired or Tom Brady got while he was with the Buccaneers, kind of call the shots. He is going to determine who is around him and what players remain. The reason Mike Gesicki got re-signed was also because of Joe Burrow. So they've taken an approach of they value the happiness of their biggest player, and they've deemed that they believe they can win with those players all getting paid that amount of money. T. Higgins should have probably just wrote out his tag, franchise tag, and then gone to the open market and gotten paid a whole lot more money. But you can also make a case that he believes the Bengals can achieve more. I would cast doubts on that. But it's just a difference in approach and sort of one person in the room. And I think Joe Burrow, to an extent, has deserved that, kind of being able to call all the shots.
So where do you stand?
On what?
Because they've obviously invested in superstars on offense, correct?
Yes.
I guarantee their O-line is probably middle to...
It's very bad.
Very
bad.
But you know why? Because they're like, hey, we'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, that team isn't making the playoffs either. So,
they were close, and I could tell you this: at the end of the season,
what do you mean close?
The team that no one wanted to play, was the Cincinnati Bengals because their offense was
except for the teams
smoking.
that played them and beat them. Like they don't have a defense, they don't have an
They
offensive
started off
line.
slow. Yeah.
Joe Burrow is constantly hurt because his offensive line is so bad. Like the Bengals are a comedic tragedy. They aren't building this. They have to basically from here forward hit on all their draft picks on the defensive side of the ball to even maintain a competitive team.
So what do you want? A little sprinkle? You want a little sprinkle of money in the offensive line and maybe a Chase or a Higgins?
Yes, I think you pick one or the other, you draft and replace, and then you invest more in your offense. Like, you keeping your superstars is great. You're able to do it or not. But committing that much to two players on a team that has clearly lacked the success that you would believe Joe Burrow is capable of, what's the reason? You just missing on your draft picks, and so that's what it is? Like, I don't think anybody in the league is looking at the Bengals and going, I want to build my team like that. That's sustainable success.
No, but I also think there's teams out there going, I don't really want to play them. I really don't. Right?
I mean,
if they played the Packers, their offense against Green Bay's defense, who are you giving the nod to?
The gap is bigger for the Packers offense versus the Bengals defense than it would be the Bengals offense versus the Packers defense. I mean, the Packers were a top 10 defense.
I guess I'm more interested in the spending habits. I'm more interested in their willingness to figure out ways to make these guys the top paid at their position, make these guys, what was the qualification that we talked about earlier, Joshy? He's the highest paid player who's not a quarterback?
Yep. Yeah,
Which, at one point, I think that was Myles Garrett, and then it was Max Crosby, right?
Before
or vice
that, it was
versa.
Justin Jefferson. If the Packers had Ja'Marr Chase, I have no question in my mind they would be making him the highest paid. They don't have that guy. They did with Devontae Adams, and then the third contract came around and they dragged their feet.
I don't think it's. I think it's they don't want to have the highest paid position player to skill. They just don't. They had an opportunity to do it when Devontae was the best receiver in the league, and they say, well, it's a third contract. Let's let him go.
See, but that's inaccurate. They made Jair Alexander the highest paid corner.
And look how well that's worked out for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, they do pay their players. It's just, what is their age? What do they think they're going to get out of them in that remaining contract? And we can all say, I don't think anybody here would argue. Moving on from Devontae, wrong move.
So it's just, I want to use this analogy and see if you guys can stay with me. It feels to me a little bit like you're building a house, okay? And Chew, you and I have talked about when you're building a house, there are certain places that you can cut corners. There are certain places where you can skimp a little, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe not spend top dollar. But there are things that you and I believe you should not skimp on, right?
Correct.
So what are those positions in football that you should go out if you have the opportunity to and just spend the money necessary to have the best at that position? Is it plain and simply quarterback, and everything else you can cut corners on, you can spend less on? Or do you think they need to go out and spend, or maybe it's a percentage? And you could argue, well, sometimes it's windows, and sometimes it's foundation, and sometimes it's siding, and sometimes it's da-da-da-da. But this year for the Green Bay Packers, it should be this. And it rotates, right? Because at one point we talked about David Bakhtiari and his salary. And obviously you mentioned Jair and his salary. And where does Xavier McKinney rank, Joshy, on the safeties list from a salary standpoint?
I'll have to look it up, but it's near the top.
What I'm investing in is the four most important: quarterback, receiver, DB, and rush end, right? Because on the offensive line, you can always do things to help. Like when we played with Bruce Wilkerson, okay? They knew that I had to help him a little bit. I had to feed the player to him, which slowed me down a little bit, but you can still get away with that. You can't do that at any of those other positions, you know? You can help. You can help. You can help there. That's why I'm just not a big fan of investing tons of money into your offensive line.
I was surprised to see that the Packers were top 10 in spending at the position, and it got me wondering, and it reminded me of Nick Saban on College Game Day this past year when they were talking about NIL and they were talking about how you build your roster in college now. And he said something along the lines of, if you pay the wrong guys, you're bleep out of luck. I guess my concern is that the Packers have paid the wrong guys.
Yeah.
That the guys that they have on the defensive line have certainly not performed to their contracts. And I'm not even talking about a rookie deal. And we still think that there needs to be more performance out of Lucas Van Ness. But that has been my concern, is that you're spending all this money at the position, and what do you have to show for it? all that work and what did it get you? That's kind of how I feel about the defensive line. And this continues to come up because Trey Hendrickson is once again in the news this morning. Diana Rossini reporting that Cincinnati is working to retain Hendrickson. Discussions are ongoing between the two sides, attempting to do what many in the league thought impossible, pay all three of their stars.